Well, the Ford government is proposing changes to the controversial bike lane bill protecting the province if cyclists are hurt or killed. The change would make it so people can no longer sue the government if they are hurt on roadways where lanes were taken out. NDP members are fighting back, saying the changes remove legal responsibility from the Conservatives.
Says it specifically any individual who is injured or killed because of a collision between a bike and a vehicle. So the Conservatives want to wash their hands from the blood that will be spilled. It will be spilled when these bike lanes are removed. That's what that amendment tells me.
The bill gives the province power to remove bike lanes on 3 major Toronto roads. It also requires Ontario municipalities to ask the province for permission to install bike lanes if removing a car lane is necessary. Concerns were raised about who would pay for the lane removal. To explain what this amendment will mean for Ontario cyclists and their safety, we're joined now by David Shellnutt. He is the founder of the Biking Lawyer LLP and joins us tonight from Toronto. Thanks for taking the time, David. Appreciate it.
Hey, Travis. Good evening.
Let me get your initial reaction to this news and these new amendments.
Yeah, it's early days. We got this at the end of the workday while we were on our way to a 500-strong bicycle protest at Queen's Park. So we don't exactly know the legality of the legislation, how it interacts with other Crown proceedings against the Crown Act. But from what we're hearing and seeing so far, it's pretty upsetting. On the one hand, you've got a government who's trying to tell people that they care about safety, care about the safety of cyclists, and that they're doing this for congestion and that everything's going to be fine if they remove these bike lanes. But then they're clearly acknowledging that their actions are going to lead to death, injury, and bereaving families by putting through last-minute late evening amendments to insulate themselves from culpability.
Yeah, I remember, when we were initially looking into the story, I think CBC was the first to break it, about kind of the bike lane removals on some of these streets. I remember talking to a government source of mine and said, well, it's not going to cause any safety issues. So if that was the talking point then, and now the government is saying, we don't want bikers to come after the government if they're injured, what do you think that says?
It's complete doublespeak. And I think beyond cyclists and pedestrians and other vulnerable road users who are directly affected by this, this is a wake-up call for the people of Ontario. You have got a government that is using legislation improperly to insulate themselves from actions that knowingly cause harm to the people of Ontario. Forget that it's a bicycle, forget that it's a bike lane. They are trying to say if they do something that results in harm to an individual, that they cannot be sued or held accountable. And everybody from Barrie to Windsor have got to be real concerned about that.
The Premier said initially about this bill that this was about relieving congestion in Toronto, which, as we all know, if you've driven around in this city, that traffic is pretty bad. Is there anything about this legislation that you are in agreement with?
Travis, I think that the only thing this legislation is a political ploy to drum up support on a hot button issue. A lot of people outside of major urban centers, Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa, don't rely and interact with bike lanes, so they don't care about them. And those are the people who Ford is trying to get away from the Liberals in the upcoming election. So he's stoking animosity against a non-issue, really. He's not talking about ERs. He's not talking about Ontario Place. He's not talking about the Greenbelt. Instead, he's talking about this issue that really doesn't matter to a ton of voters and scoring huge political points off it. Unfortunately, it's at the expense of my safety, my kids' safety, who bicycles to school in a bike lane, and all of our clients.
So as you said, the story broke late in the day here on these amendments, but you mentioned that you're going to be looking at whether this is even legal. So tell me what you're going to be looking at in terms of the legality of this and how this potentially could be passed into law.
Yeah, so in cases where road repair has been done negligently, you sue municipalities. When prisoners in institutions are assaulted by prison guards, you sue the Crown. So this is all pretty standard law. Like if you do harm to a person, it's negligent or some other way, then there's a case against you. So just because they're writing this amendment saying we're going to remove that responsibility, we don't think the discussion is ending there. Maybe every single claim that we do in the future will have a constitutional claim within it. There's lots of ways that this can be dealt with, and we're going to be looking at all of them. But we really encourage people of Ontario to write to their MPPs and say, hey guys, this is some pretty draconian stuff. We're concerned about where it's taking our province.
Just finally, because I got to run here, but what kind of precedent do you think this sets, and what does it mean for the cycling community in Toronto and possibly other municipalities as well?
Yeah, I think it should galvanize cyclists across the province. We're already working with cyclists in Ottawa, Hamilton, Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo. Right now, we're working behind the scenes with everybody. So this will just push us closer together, make us more resolute in our opposition to these guys who are trying to score political points on my safety.
Okay, David, thanks for jumping on here tonight with the breaking news. Appreciate it. That is David Shellnutt, founder of the Biking Lawyer LLP, joining us from Toronto.